Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's NAA iSeries webinar. I'm Aaron Ensminger, the Director of Education for the National Auctioneers Association, and I'd like to thank you for joining us for today's newest iSeries installment. iSeries is a free informational webinar series produced by the NAA in order to share auction industry knowledge and insight with NAA members and the general public. We're excited to present today's session on online auctions, but before we do, we want to share a little bit more with you about NAA. Headquartered in Overland Park, Kansas, NAA is the world's largest association dedicated to auction professionals and represents the interests of thousands of auction professionals in the United States and across the world. NAA is dedicated to providing educational programming and resources to help members advance themselves professionally. The NAA's mission is to provide critical resources to auction professionals that will enhance their skills and successes, and its vision is that NAA members will be the preferred auction professionals used in the marketplace. Among those resources we provide is this iSeries, and today's session will be presented by Russ Hilk. Russ graduated from St. Olaf College in 2000 and has been actively involved in the auction industry since graduating from Worldwide College of Auctioneering in 2002. Until 2010, Russ served as the Vice President of Hilk Auction Services, where he managed auction sales of industrial machinery. Seizing the opportunity to bring technology to the auction industry, Russ then co-founded WaveBid in 2011 and acquired auctionservices.com in 2016. Currently, Hilk manages his own auction company, Fram, is Vice President of Business Development at ProxyBid, and works at numerous benefit auctions throughout Minnesota. A frequent presenter at state and national conventions, Russ has been a member of both the NAA and MSAA for over 15 years and earned his CAI designation in 2016. Before the presentation begins, please note that you may take part in the conversation. Type and submit your questions at any time during this presentation, and we'll get to as many of them as we can during our brief Q&A period. After that, we'll also ask you to please take part in a very short 3-question poll. With that, Russ, thank you and welcome. Russ, I don't think we can hear you. Make sure you're off mute.
Aaron, thank you for that suggestion. I bet you can hear me now.
I can. It's just perfect. Thanks very much.
Excellent. Sorry about that. I just wanted to say thank you to Aaron and the NAA for including me as part of the iSeries. Today we're going to be talking about online-only auctions in 2020. For those of you who don't know the year, it's 2019. So we're not talking about the here and now, but we're talking about what's right around the corner. I wanted to provide some context on online-only auctions because I think it helps shape where we're going. And this may come as a surprise, but auctioneers were actually early adopters to internet technology. There were many companies who've come and gone over the years, but the 3 companies on the left existed before a lot of the companies that have become synonymous with internet usage. There's also a lot of auctioneers that were conducting online-only auctions before Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Hulu even existed as companies. Why is this germane? Well, for a lot of people, online auctions, it's not new technology. It's the improvements that are coming to the existing technology that make it right. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time adding some context. And if you're familiar and have been doing online auctions for a long time, this might be a little bit of a review, but stick with me because we have some great stuff at the end. If you're new to online-only auctions, there's really 2 different places where the online auction can take place. The first one is what I call a white label. And what that means is the online auction takes place on your website. They simply go to your website, engage in the online auction, and do all the bidding from your website. The advantage to that is you get all of the traffic and all of the marketing pointed towards the assets you have to sell. The other method is what's called a portal auction. And that's where a bunch of auctioneers get together and share a location or a marketplace where assets can be sold. The great analogy that I like to use is that of a standalone brick and mortar store or a shopping mall. You are responsible for the 4 walls, the parking lot, and the contents. That's white label. Portal is like a shopping mall where you have various different shops. Someone may come into Gap to buy a t-shirt, but on their way out, they might stop at Banana Republic and Target. So you get the benefit of all the marketing efforts going into that. The bad news is they may come to your auction for a specific thing and end up purchasing at somebody else's auction. So there's advantages and disadvantages to both. Now let's fast forward to 2020, and this technology exists today, but it hasn't been widely adopted. There is available a hybrid, kind of the best of both worlds, where you can have a white label where people search inventory that's only available in your auctions and all your marketing points back to your website, while that exact same inventory exists in a marketplace. It really is kind of the best of both worlds. And if it's not something you're using, it's something you should consider. If you feel like you have a good buyer base, or if you want your marketing to point back to your business and your brand, it's certainly something to consider. Now, in the short amount of time that I have with you, and believe me, I'd love to talk to you all day because I love this stuff. My goal is for you to have a single thing or a couple takeaways or an idea to explore further. We obviously don't have enough time to get into a lot of detail, but there's certainly no shortage of opportunities for auctioneers to talk to auctioneers. So if you leave with an idea or something you want more detail on, by all means, go into a forum or go into a place where you talk about auctioneers and just say, hey, I was watching today's iSeries by the NAA, and here's the idea. What do you guys think? It's a great way to get a deeper knowledge because we just don't have time to go into that today. Now, there are a couple different types of online auctions. The traditional online auction was born literally at the same time these platforms were getting started. There's a variety of different vendors you can use. There's a bunch of different companies that do this. And you simply photograph and describe the assets. You get to set the number of lots that close per minute, the bidding increments, and the amount of time that you can extend bidding if you choose to turn that on. But other than that, there really aren't a lot of controls that you typically have in a live auction. This can be done on a platform or on a white label or hybrid, but there's a variety of different people out there that can provide this service to you, the auctioneer. Now, we're not talking about simulcast auctions today. We're talking about online only, but this is something I see in the industry as gaining momentum. It's called an online only webcast. So what does that mean? That's a traditional auction, a traditional simulcast auction, but there's no live audience. Just think auctioneering without pants on. All of your audience is online. They're all bidding through the bidding platform that you choose to use. Now, why would you do this? Maybe a live audience isn't practical. Maybe you can't generate a large enough live audience to deal with the expense of it. Or most importantly, maybe you want to use more than one bidding platform. Doing an online only webcast, you can use multiple vendors, have your auction on multiple different websites or portals, and then interact with those bids through the actual live prior of the auction. The other thing I really like about this is it gives the auctioneer more control. You're not stuck with X number of lots per minute with extended bidding like you are with a traditional timed auction. It's a one lot at a time, or grouped, I guess, if you choose to do it, experience. So this is an online only webcast that you can use. Now, this is something new that has been out for a little while, but from an auctioneer standpoint, this is very exciting to me. This is called a hybrid webcast. And really, it's putting the best of both worlds together again. I will do the best I can to describe it, but the best thing you should really do is see this working. BidPath has done a wonderful job with this technology. My friend Adam Alexander, who put this together, is also an auctioneer. So the auctioneer brain kind of went into creating this. But the reality is, you close one lot at a time sequentially, but there's an automatic timer. So each lot could be open for 6 seconds, 10 seconds, or 30 seconds. And if there's not a bid, that lot closes and the next lot is immediately in the ring. Again, it gives you lot by lot closing, but the advantage to the hybrid is that the auctioneer can participate if they choose to do it. Now, I've seen examples where the auctioneer is just chanting along with the internet bids. I've also seen examples where the auctioneer can interact with the item being sold. I was watching a college university auction. They were selling rare books. The auctioneer was very familiar with this, and he was able to describe the key features as the items were closing. The other neat thing about this is the auctioneer can hold an item open if they see there's a lot of activity, just to get that extra punch like you're used to doing on the stand if you're a traditional auctioneer. is a really interesting technology that I would expect to see much broader adoption going forward. And I'll talk about this a little later, but I'll touch on it now. There are a bunch of vendors, and by vendors, I really mean partners. There's a bunch of different people that provide auction technology to auctioneers. And there is nothing wrong with going out and seeing what's new. There's nothing wrong with going out and seeing if there's a great fit for what it is you're trying to do. One isn't necessarily better than another. It's just what you need for your business. So I'll fly through this, but the reality is marketing is changing. This is the Star Tribune in 1987. You can see it takes up about half a page of what was the classified section, which used to be page after page of everything from puppies to auctions to machinery. What we can see is over the last 20 years, the number of auction ads have fallen. I'm going to predict in 2020 that section may not exist because the availability and cost to more information is much, much better than it was in the past. In 1987, 30 lines in the Star Tribune may have cost $300 or $400. You can now market at the item level with thousands of photos through social media for the same price and reach thousands and thousands of interested buyers, not just be black text on a white background in a newspaper that's gone the next day it goes into that recycle bin. I'm not here to tell you in 18 minutes where to go online. I'm just here to tell you that the number of options, the marketing landscape has exploded. For those of you listening who've done an auction before 2011, in 2011, you had 150 marketing options on the internet. Today, you have over 5,000. I should say 2 years ago you did. Now there are even more. And as things come and go, as things become popular, as new technology emerges, the behavior where we can find our buyers is going to change. I don't have the magic formula. I'm not even going to pretend to go into it. A lot of auctioneers are using Facebook with great success. But what I am going to tell you is that you need to measure where your buyers are coming from. Google is the golden standard with Google Analytics. There's no doubt about that. In practice, with a lot of my friends who are auctioneers, they choose not to or don't have the time to dive into Google Analytics. But the reality is, this is really, really simple. When someone is paying their invoice, ask them how they heard about the sale and keep track. And then the only thing you have to do is go back and measure what was the cost of that marketing, how many bidders did I have, and you can get your cost per bidder. You can see where your marketing is best spent in a very simple, very low cost method. And I would encourage you to spend a percentage of every marketing budget trying something new. Again, a great opportunity to go to a forum and ask auctioneers what's working and what's not. We just don't have time to get into today. If you're serious about marketing your auctions, and you should be, I can't recommend strong enough the Auction Marketing Management designation from the NAA. It's taught by true professionals and visionaries who have their finger on the pulse of what's working, because they're doing auctions each and every day, and they are some of the most professional people willing to share their secret sauce that I've ever seen. So AMM, I can't say enough good things about it. Been through the class, continue to talk about it every chance I get. Now, this might seem obvious. You've probably heard this before. In 2017, mobile became more widely used than traditional screen. I'm not saying should be. I'm saying in 2020, you must be mobile. There are still plenty of software providers that do not provide a good mobile experience, and you're already behind the time. In 2020, just a year from now, 11 months, you're going to be a dinosaur, and you will be losing bidders, you will be losing revenue because your online-only solution isn't mobile. This is also important because there are vendors in the market who offer online bidding that isn't secure. You have to be secure. People are noticing this stuff now. Never mind the actual security risk of not being secure. You're losing potential people registering and participating in your auctions because the technology you're using isn't secure. And if you guys have questions, by all means, please feel free to reach out to me. I love talking about auctions. I talk about auctions every day, and I'm happy to dive in more depth if you have questions on this kind of stuff. So the next 3 slides do something that I want on your radar. After all, we're talking about a year from now. We're not talking about 5 years, and we're not talking about today. The American Disability Act typically deals with physical things. It's the difference between having a ramp versus stairs and access for people with disabilities. Well, that movement is moving online. And you don't have to have it today, but something that should be on your radar is your technology compliant? Do you offer closed captioning for videos, alt text for images, or the ability for a blind person to read what's on your website? Now, you may say, I don't need that, it doesn't matter, but the reality is it certainly may matter in the future. I also want to know, or I want you to have on your radar, that online sales tax is an evolving and changing thing. And we do have a question and answer period after this. So if you guys have questions and you're familiar with GoToMeeting, go ahead and put those in. We'll try to answer as many as we have time for. But the tax landscape has changed, and South Dakota versus Wayfair is something you definitely need to be aware of. This is also something that's worth conversations as you talk amongst your friends. I'm starting to see more and more auctioneer-driven portals. This is kind of like a marketplace, but instead of being technology-driven, it's like-minded auctioneers getting together and creating their own alliance where they can best promote themselves and each other. Now, here's a slide where hopefully everybody gets some value. These are best practices in 2020. Photos sell items, friends. If you have a single photo of an item, don't be upset when in your online only auction, it doesn't bring the price you thought it would be. This is online only. This isn't a replacement or an alternative to live bidding. You're only offering it online. And a lot of people aren't, I shouldn't say a lot. We're seeing momentum towards people not even having a live preview for an online only auction. And that's why the more photos, the better. I don't believe you can have too many. That's also why details are great. Now, I'm sure I'm going to make somebody mad on this, but rethink, I'm not saying do, I'm saying rethink as is, where is. Now, I make a lot of mistakes myself. I'm far from perfect, and I'm sure there's a lot of auctioneers that make less mistakes than I do, but on occasion, you may make a mistake. And if you stick to your guns with as is, where is, traditionally you would say they would tell 5 people and those 5 would tell 5, and now 25 people know, good, bad, or otherwise, what kind of job you did. Today, they'll leave a review on Facebook, they'll leave a review on Google, and that will live on for years. And that may affect how sellers perceive you. So if you make a mistake or if somebody's disappointed, it's time to kind of rethink the rigidity of as is, where is. Now, ultimately, it needs to be fast, easy, and fun. Our biggest competitors aren't necessarily other auctioneers. It's e-commerce in general. And if it's not fast, fun, and easy, and they can go somewhere else that is fast, fun, and easy, guess what? They're going to take their business somewhere else. Now, notice, I didn't say cheapest. I said fast, fun, and easy. Here's another questionable one. Everybody else online ships. Okay, they do. Now, you may go in an auctioneer's forum and get a bunch of like-minded people saying, don't ship, because so long as you don't do it, they don't have to do it. But go into an e-commerce platform and ask, do you guys ship? And let me know the responses, because the vast majority are going to say yes. It's time to start thinking in terms of what your customers want and how they're going to interact. Most importantly, duration is key. If you do an online only auction with no live bidding and you only put those assets up with 24 hours before you close it, you will have a different result than if you have it up for a week or even 2 weeks or more. Now, I'm not going to debate what's the optimum time to be open for online bidding, but I would suggest the longer the assets are online, the better you're going to do. And here's my final slide, and it's my final slide because it's the one I want you to think about. You need to find the best technology partner for you. Now, I've used the word vendor. You can use whatever word you want to talk about the person that provides the online bidding technology for your company. Most auctioneers rely on that partner, and the reason they're a partner is they sink or swim with you. It may be through commission or it may be a flat fee per month as a subscription, but the reality is if you're not making money, you're not going to use them going forward. And technology partners offer different things for different auctioneers. So it's a matter of finding the partner that works with you. And working in the technology side of the auction business, I can tell you some people are aggressively investing in their platform. And some companies have fallen behind in their technology. So it is not an equal playing field. And it's only through talking to vendors and finding out who best fits your needs can you be best positioned for your company in 2020. Now, that was a flyover review of online auctions in 2020. I really hope you have one or two things you can take away from it. And we're going to open it up for questions, and I hope we get some great ones. Thank you guys for your time very much.
Russ, thank you so much. At this time, so as Russ said, we'll open up the floor for questions. If you haven't done so, submit your question, and we'll do our best to get to as many as we can. I've got one here for you, Russ. When you're doing an online-only webcast, are bidding platforms starting to allow the ability to stream video, or is it its own standalone service or program?
That's a great question. Thank you for whoever asked it. The technology for the answer is most platforms have streaming audio and streaming video available through the platform. What's great about that is the auctioneer can see and hear within the application where they're doing their bidding. The reality is, if you haven't done it in a while, you should look at it again. There have been tremendous advances with some of these platforms with streaming technology. There have been a lot of advances in technology that make the latency, which is the difference between real time and the time you see it and hear it, down to almost nothing. So it's a great way for a traditional live auctioneer to interact with the audience, and it's much higher quality, much lower bandwidth, much faster, less latency than it used to be. That's a great question. Thank you, Aaron.
Great. Thanks very much, Russ. So when it comes to real estate, do you see online real estate auctions expanding in 2020, or have they started to reach a place where they're maturing?
That's a great question. I think when you talk in terms of real estate at auction, it's a very broad category. You could be doing bank-owned properties that are worth $5,000, or you could be doing $1,000,000 estates. I think it's expanding and will continue to expand as e-commerce expands in general. People are becoming more and more comfortable buying online. That's just the reality of it. We're seeing a decline in traditional sales and continued growth in online sales. Now, it's not advancing year over year as a percentage as fast as it used to, but it's growing. And I think real estate was kind of late to the game. A lot of people are just more comfortable being in front of an auctioneer, or they used to be. As people become more and more comfortable buying online, as tools become more available to do better descriptions, videos, streaming videos, tours, etc., I expect to continue to see online-only auctions in real estate grow and maybe even accelerate.
That's great. Thank you so much. Russ, we're used to your client list being something that we hold very close and is a real private thing. How do you start to deal with your client listing and how you handle the privacy concerns when you're moving to a platform?
How long do you have to answer that? So there's
some things you should think about?
There's two very important things. Data privacy is real, and it's coming to the United States. In Europe, they recently launched what's called GDPR, which is set practices and laws pertaining to how data is used and shared. It's only a matter of time until it comes to the United States. And frankly, we've seen enough misused data with Facebook and some of the other companies where it should be a concern to everyone. When I started in the auction business, the most valuable asset to an auction company was that list. And to this day, it continues to have some value, but not as much as it used to. I wouldn't necessarily, if I had a list of 100,000 people and I was going to make the move to an online bidding platform, a portal, if you will, I would have reservations about sharing that list with them directly. I would instead use it for marketing and continuing to push my content to them. But I don't know that I would share it with the broader community. One, because there's genuine privacy concerns. Unless you have a privacy policy that states you, when registering, you agree to have this data shared with others, a little questionable, but it's also something that you've built up with your marketing dollars over time, and that still has value. Now, that being said, I also believe that people buy items. And if you have the items that people want, one, they will find you, and two, they will buy them. And even if they're on your list and they've already bought something in the past, that doesn't mean they'll buy something in the future. So I don't give it as much weight as I used to. But one little caveat from a marketing standpoint, using an existing list to create a lookalike audience in Facebook is one of the most underutilized tools that are available to auctioneers today.
Thanks so much, Russ. That'll wrap up the question and answer portion of today's event. Thanks so much to those of you who submitted questions. I apologize if I wasn't able to get to yours. And now I'd like to ask you to give us some feedback on today's session. So please take a look at your screen. You'll see the poll and answer the questions as they appear. We'll move pretty quickly, so please answer as soon as you can. Question number 1, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest and 1 being the lowest, how would you rate today's iSeries presentation? All right, and you should see question 2 pop up. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being very likely and 1 being not at all likely, how likely are you to recommend the iSeries to a friend? And our last question for today, I plan to attend the Internet-only auction summit. Yes, maybe, no. Thanks for taking part in today's survey. And before we end today's session, we do have some updated information on upcoming NAA events. Registration for the NAA's Internet-only auction summit is still open. You can see some more information for this event on your screen, and you can register for the Internet-only auction summit and any other upcoming events at auctioneers.org. As we close today, you'll get a replay of today's session through an emailed link by the end of this week. And in addition, if you're an NAA member and you've missed any previous iSeries sessions or would like to hear them again, our iSeries archives are available at auctioneers.org. You do need to be an active member, and you will need to log on to access those. And finally, an iSeries programming note. Your next iSeries webinar will be Wednesday, March 13th at 2 p.m. Central Time, and we'll explore auction sales techniques, a session you won't want to miss. We'll send specific information on that in the near future. Thank you again, Russ, for sharing your insight today, and thank you to everyone for taking part in today's iSeries. That concludes today's webinar. Have a great day, and remember that the NAA iSeries exists because it's about you.